Now that we've talked about CSS or cascading style sheets and we've created our first website, we're going to take it a step further, taking the information that you've learned and add just a little bit to it today, making our second website using CSS. So if you look at Google Classroom, I have a couple things for you. One is the HTML document that you're going to need to open up in your text editor so it can be copied and pasted into either Dreamweaver or liveweave.com. You can see that I've already done that on my LiveWeave account right here. I have the steps that we're going to be following today right here on our class website. So if you click on that link, you're going to be able to see the finished website up here at the top of exactly what it should look like when you are completely done. And I have our steps that we're going to be following down below, as well as an answer key for both the HTML page, as well as all of the CSS that you're going to be coding today. So if you're ever stuck and you need to see a close-up view of what that code actually looks like, you can peek at this at any point to double check your work to make sure you're right along with the right step that we're on. So let's go ahead and look back at Google Classroom one more time, because there is a second style sheet here, just like last time, where you're going to copy and paste that style sheet onto our page so that it adds that extra little pizzazz, moving things around, bumping things around. Our style sheet that we're creating is going to be doing a lot of what we just did before, of changing colors, changing text, adding background colors. This is going to be the actual moving and maneuvering of things around within the page. I would not copy this until the very end, just so that it doesn't get confusing with a lot of text on your page, but that is there for you. That should be your last step that you complete for this website. Let's go ahead and peek at our website and look at our first couple steps here. So the first one is going to be opening up your files and resaving them, which is going to be equivalent to copying and pasting it into the program that you're using. So make sure you have that HTML file in your program ready to go. If you are going to be working on Dreamweaver, make sure you make a new folder that you're going to be saving all of this stuff into. Otherwise, your pages are not going to be able to connect together. If you have them saved separately or just on your desktop, they have to be saved within the same folder to be able to work appropriately. All right, so step number 2 is go to the Civil War HTML file, so the one that we just copied and pasted, and notice that there are 2 navigation lists in the document. We want the first one to be displayed horizontally and the second one to be displayed vertically. To do this, we have to add the class equals attribute to each of the navigation elements. So set the horizontal nav class to horizontal and the vertical nav to vertical. So we've learned about classes now at this point. We've used them a couple times. They're still a little bit new, but what the basic thing is with a class is that you're giving it a name to that specific tag that I can link to that on my CSS and change that one specifically. I might have 7 or 8 paragraphs in my website, but if I give one a class name, I can link to that specific paragraph by its name on my CSS page, so I can change just that one. So since I have 2 different navigation pages that I'm going to, or navigation tags that I'm adding into my website, I want to make sure that I can target them both differently. So if I look at my final website, what you're going to be doing with those navigations is making one of them horizontal. You can see this first one goes across the top of your page like buttons, and then the second one is going to be our vertical navigation going down the page. Now you don't have to call them that as long as you link to them with the same name on our CSS. Vertical doesn't make it vertical, or horizontal doesn't make it horizontal. We have to write the right CSS coding to make that happen. But you want to make sure that that link of whatever that name is the same on our CSS page. So let's find those 2 nav tags, and I've actually done this step on everybody's for you, so you don't have to do this one. But just look at where it is so you know for future reference. In this first navigation tag, you can see that I wrote class equals horizontal, so I gave it that name of horizontal. And then my second one is class equals vertical, again in that opening tag. If I wanted to link to either of those, all you need to do is on the CSS page, you'd write dot or period, and then the name that you gave it. All right, so let's move on to step number 3. And step number 3 says go to the CW styles file. There's another style sheet, which is the CW layout CSS page. That's the one that I have linked back on our Google Classroom for you guys to copy and paste later. And we're going to import the CW layout CSS sheet using the @import rule. So add the following to the top of your CW style CSS page. That's the one that we're coding. This is another way of linking your style sheets to your HTML file. If I have more than one style sheet within that same folder, I can use this import rule to be able to import them without actually writing the link on the top of my HTML file. Either works, but let's go ahead and try it this way this time. And really, liveweave.com is going to do this automatically for us. So @import URL and then the name of our style sheet. Okay, so that's going to link that layout style sheet as if I had it in the same folder to the page that I'm editing as well without having to write it in the top of my actual HTML file. Number 4, go to the CW styles file, which is the one we have open, and we're going to now set some styles to the body of the page. The first style will be adding the font list of this font name. So this is the type of font, like Times New Roman. We're giving it this font family. And we also want to make sure that we give a couple other options. Remember, not every browser is going to be able to read every single font that's out there, so you want to give it a couple options, and absolutely, positively, no matter what, you want to say whether you want it to be serif or sans serif. So at the very minimum, if the computer doesn't have any of those fonts that you're listing, it can read it as a serif or sans serif font. Remember, serif is when it has the little feet and tails on the letters, and sans serif is when it doesn't. So Times New Roman would be a serif font, Arial would be a sans serif font. So in our case, we want it to be a serif font. So let's head over to our CSS page and link to the body of our document. And you might want to give it a comment here just to start this off. Body styles. In case there's anything else it asks us to do, we can keep it all together. Okay, and inside of the body, we are going to be changing the font family. Remember, when it's more than one word, to add the quotations around the outside. In between each of those names that we added in there, I'm just going to go ahead and add commas to separate them out. All right, so this is declaring that I want my body of my website to display this font family. If this one isn't available, it will go to the next one, and at the very least, it's going to display a serif font for us. All right, so let's go to the next step here. Okay, so number 5 is the next step is going to be setting the styles for the H1 through H6 headings, setting the color to the specific color code, and setting the font to these specific fonts. And we're going to remove the bold using the font weight of 400, and then the kerning and text indent to 5px. So this one is asking us to link to H1 through H6. So remember, if you're linking to more than one tag, you can write all of them instead of writing them individually. So H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, and H6. Okay, and let's go through and add each of these things. So we want the color of the font to be this color code. Okay, and we want the font family. And this one's a sans serif font. Okay, and we want the font weight to be 400. And we want text indent 5px. And for the kerning, it's written as letter spacing. And we also want that to be 5px. So far we can see on our website that the style of my body text has changed to this serif font, so it does have the feet and tails. And then you can also see that my heading tags have changed to a different font that are the sans serif font, and the letters are spaced out. We have a specific boldness of the font weight, and we have the indent on each of those. Okay, and then just a quick note here about colors. Remember, you can use Adobe Color to copy and paste any color that you have on a logo or design that's going to match with the website and use that exact color code, so that's an option for us. But there's also these HSL colors. It's a way of adding opacity, so it says, RGB color values and color names have been part of web page design since the introduction of CSS. To allow designers to create more interesting designs based on color, additional tools have been added. Colors based on HSL, hue, saturation, and lightness allow designers to create more options with colors. Opacity is used to set the transparency of color. When opacity is applied, HSLA is written before the values. So step number 6 says we're going to set a style rule for all the H1 headings used as headers within the body of the page. To do this, we're going to type body, and then we're going to use our carets. So it's body kind of greater than header greater than H1 to set the style rule for all the H1 headings used as headers within the body of the page. So getting a little bit more complex, we're listing each of these tags. So it's going to be those H1s used as headers within the body. So let's go ahead and write that out on our style sheet here. And color. Take a second and make sure that you have the right spacing in between everything here. So after each of our commas, make sure that there's spaces in between those so that they're not reading each other at the same time. Make sure that there's spaces after your commas when you write out your HSLA color as well. And then finally, after you do the body, header, and H1 in between each of those carets, make sure that there's an equal amount of spacing one after each. That way it's going to read correctly to be able to load your website to refresh it here. So you should see that you now have a blue bar across the top for the background color. So that was one of our H1 colors here. And then we also have our color of our text changed to this kind of light gray color. So that's where you should be after we just completed step number 6 here. So going on to step number 7, we're going to add the style rule for an unordered list within the horizontal navigation list. So we're going to add in, let's go ahead and separate these two so we have comments for each one. Just because we're going to end up with quite a bit on this page. So let's do heading styles. And this one's going to be for the horizontal navigation. Okay, so an unordered list within the horizontal navigation list. So we're going to do nav horizontal. Let's just make sure, see if that's capitalized or not. So it has to be written exactly the same. Okay, so these are lowercase, so that's perfect. So nav.horizontal and then the unordered list within it. And we want to change the font family. And make sure it's sans serif. Okay, and we're going to set the font size to 14 pixels. We're going to display the text bold. So we're going to add a font weight here. So let's just do 700 as an example. And then we want our kerning, so letter spacing, to be 3 pixels. And our line height is 20 pixels. And remove the markers from the list, so list, style, type, none. Okay, so you can see all of those changes that happened to our horizontal list up here at the top. It's not quite horizontal yet. It will be when we add our other CSS page in, but you can see those major changes that we just did right here. All right, let's keep moving forward on to step number 8. For the links in the horizontal navigation list, set the text to the specific color, remove the underlining, and when the mouse hovers over a link, change the font color to this new color here. So this is kind of 2 steps in one. We're going to link to the links. So nav.horizontal LIA for the links. Change the color to the specific color code. We're going to remove the underline, which is text decoration none. So that's a new one for us today. when the mouse hovers over it. So now we have to link to the hover. We're done here. Let's make another link specifically to the hover. So nav.horizontal LIA hover. And this one we're going to change it to that new color here. So color, oh, background color. So now when I hover over the top, it's going to change to that define color. It should be 95. There we go. Okay, number 10, create a style rule to set the color to this color for the H4 element within the vertical navigation list. So let's now make another comment for our vertical navigation list to keep that separately. Okay, and then we want it to be nav.vertical. Background color. Okay, so it just changed the background color of our other navigation list here, so I linked that correctly. Create a style rule to set the color for the H4 element within. So I'm going to make another link here, nav.vertical H4. Color HSLA, so this is one that's going to have that transparency effect. I'm going to set the font size to 18. And text indent to 15 px. Okay, so it should look like this. Number 11, we're going to display the ordered list items in the vertical navigation list in an outline style with uppercase Roman numerals for the top level and uppercase alphabetic letters for the second level. Also set the line height of the list items to 2em, which we learned is a percentage compared to the rest of the page. And to create the outline within the above specifications, type the following style rule. So it's giving us exactly what you need to type here. So nav.vertical OL for the ordered list this time, not the unordered list. List style type. Instead of none, it's upper Roman. You can see it changes to Roman numerals then on our page. And line height to EM. Okay, and then one more time we're going to link to the nav.vertical OL because there is an ordered list inside of that ordered list. You can see the first ordered list as our first set of numerals here, and then each one has that second set of another ordered list inside of it. So we're going to link to those now separately. List, style, type, upper alpha. So after we type in list style type equals or colon upper alpha, instead of having our Roman numerals going down the page here, we now have our capital letters that are going to be going down. So the upper alpha is going to be these letters instead. So our second ordered list within our ordered list now has that instead. All right, and that was step number 11. Going down to step 13, set the style rule for the links to vertical, the vertical navigation list. So when the mouse hovers over the top of the link. So this is going to be another hover. So nav.vertical OL and we want the background color. And the second part of 13 has us add in text, decoration, underline. Although we do know it's a default for a web address to have the underline, so it's not going to change anything. Typically we add text, decoration, none to delete that underline, but it wants us to make sure that it appears. So text, decoration, underline, we want that to appear. All right, 14. Now we'll write the styles for the section element. Set the background color of the section element to this color code. So let's make another comment here for our section. Okay, and then it wants us to do the background color. So section. Background color. Okay, so that's going to add the background color to this section that we have down here, this kind of baby blue. Number 15, when writing styles for the first paragraph after the H2 heading within the article element, we would type article H2 plus P. Create a style rule to type the first letter with a font size of 32 pixels. To apply this, use the following style rule. So we're going to write exactly what it says here. Article H2 plus P colon first letter, to link to that first letter, and we're going to change the font size of just that first letter to 32. So this is getting pretty complicated, a little bit more advanced than where we're at right now. But if you're looking for more, this is definitely the next step in CSS to be able to link to very, very specific items like this. So we have an article tag, we're linking to the H2 inside of that article tag, and then the paragraph, but not just the paragraph, just the first letter. And we're going to change the font size to 32px. So you can see that T in the Civil War becomes 32 pixels compared to the rest of it if you do that step correctly. All right, step number 16, there is a paragraph in the footer that we're going to set a style rule so that it sets the size to 10 pixels and the line height to 30. We're also going to center this text. So again, this is a paragraph that's inside of the footer. Let's make another comment for our footer. Okay, so we have footer P, font size 10px. Line height is 30px, and text align center. So if we look at our footer, it should have adjusted that for us. Save our changes. Okay, and then we have to add this one last step in to make sure that our CSS is going to change the format of our page, which is going back to Google Classroom, opening up that style layout page that I've already made for you. We're going to grab the entire thing, and we're going to add that right in here at the end. So after this footer styles, Control-C, Control-V to paste that in. And our final website on here should look like this. We are going to be missing our images. If you were to download this file and put them in the same folder, as long as you have them named correctly, you'd be able to see them on your page. If you are using Dreamweaver, you can absolutely do that. I have the photos provided on the website as links, but otherwise we're just looking to save the whole folder and turn it in, or if you're on liveweave.com, to make sure you hit save. Copy that link up at the top and turn it in for the assignment.